Hi, Jess. How are you?
Good. How are you today, Gina?
I'm doing great. Jessica Keeton is here, and I'm Gina Collinsworth. We work for the Ohio Valley Regional Development Commission, which you probably already know if you're on our Facebook page watching our live stream. And I have to apologize, everyone. It's my fault. We're late. I had some kind of computer technical snafu, and I know about this much. I know enough to be dangerous, and I could not get back online. So we're running late. I apologize for that. But we have a lot of great information to share today about the ARC program. And Jessica Keeton is here. She is the Economic Development Coordinator for OVRDC. Jessica, how long have you been with OVRDC?
10 years in July.
10 years. How long have you worked on the ARC program?
I actually started out sort of assisting with it when I first came on board with OVRDC, but I took it over probably about 5 years ago.
And I know that it's a great program, and part of what OVRDC does, we also work with the EDA. We work with ODOT on regional transportation planning. We work with the Ohio Public Works Commission, revolving loan fund. But today we're talking about the ARC program. And Jess, would you just talk a little bit about ARC?
Okay. Well, the Appalachian Regional Commission was formed in the 60s in response to the war on poverty to serve the counties in Appalachia because historically we have suffered worse economic development indicators, higher rates of poverty, lower rates of educational attainment, those sorts of things. So ARC came about to sort of help to level the playing field between Appalachia and the rest of the United States. So now we have this program where we look at the economic indicators of each county and we're able to offer funding based upon those indicators in part up to $250,000 for is the grant cap typically for an ARC project.
So let me just jump in and say, Jess, OVRDC is a local development district, and we serve 12 counties in southern Ohio. So I'm going to show you had sent us a graphic of some of the counties, and you might want to explain the differences in the counties that we're serving. So I'm going to show that, and we're working with new technology. We cannot guarantee how this is.
Yeah. So of our 12 counties, 11 of those are ARC counties. Fayette, which we serve, is actually not in Appalachian County. But we serve all the way from in the west, Claremont County, to the east, Gallia County, all along the Ohio River, north, and probably our northernmost county is Ross. Um, so if you look at the county designation map, each county of our 11 ARC counties has a designation, and that is all the way from attainment, which is a 0% grant rate, to a distressed county, which is an 80% grant rate. We have no attainment counties in our region. However, we have competitive counties in Claremont County, which are eligible for a 30% grant rate. Transitional counties, which are in the middle for economic indicators, and they're eligible for a 50% grant rate. At-risk counties, which are eligible for a 70% grant rate, and distressed counties, which are eligible for an 80% grant rate. And the way that they figure those is to look at the economic indicators across the entire U.S. and in each county. So a distressed county is in the bottom 10% of all U.S. counties for economic health, for example.
So we serve 12 counties. We have one county that is part of the distressed designation, right? That's Adams County.
Correct, yes.
And that would be an 80% project.
Mm-hmm. Up to $250,000, unless there is relative significant economic impact for a project, then we actually have the ability to go a little bit higher. But that is on a case by case and year by year basis, really.
So I feel like there's a lot of technical information for people. So I want to say at this point, if you're listening, the best thing you can do is reach out to Jessica, to start the ball rolling that way. Definitely, if you have an idea for a project. And I had posted this, Jess, to get questions from people out there in our service area, and we sent out an email, we sent out Facebook. So I do have a few questions that some people wanted to know. And the first one is something that Amanda Lewis from Scioto County, and also Lori McNelly from Scioto County. Lori's a communications coordinator for the Scioto County Board of DD. And Amanda is very active in the nonprofit world and the nonprofit sector. So their question was both the same. They want to know what projects qualify for ARC funding.
Well, really, what we're looking for in an ARC project is that there's some sort of economic impact involved. And ARC really doesn't cut off for a certain project type. They're really just looking for that economic component. So ARC is very broad and varied. We've done everything, for example, from funding equipment in libraries, medical equipment, water and sewer projects, road projects, just all over the place. So I would really encourage anyone who has a project idea that has some sort of economic development component and they're interested in ARC to reach out to me, because I'm always willing to talk about individual projects because of the broadness of the ARC program.
So, Jess, are you saying then that you don't necessarily have to be a nonprofit to qualify for ARC funding, or do you? I'm sorry, I wasn't sure about that.
Well, ARC is open to a number of applicants, labor unions, schools, units of government, nonprofits are certainly included in that. Really, pretty much as long as you're not a private for-profit, you're probably eligible. If you're not sure, again, you can always reach out to me. And if I don't know the answer, I know somebody who does. So we'll find out for you.
We've got a great team, don't we? We work with everybody. Speaking of a business, in fact, if you're a business, you can still reach out to OVRDC because of the revolving loan fund. So that would be something. But today we're talking about ARC projects, and we just talked a little bit about what qualifies for funding. And another question came in from Lori. Hers was, what are the requirements for organizations seeking funding for local projects? So what kind of requirements do they have to meet?
Really, you just have to meet that economic development requirement and be an eligible applicant. And when I talk about economic development, those sorts of impacts, typically the easiest things to document are jobs retained or jobs created. There are some other ways that you can go about that. It doesn't necessarily have to be any of those direct impacts, because we do understand that there are projects that maybe have a very real and profound yet indirect impact on the economy. So you always want to talk to me about those, and I will always give you advice on, how you can maybe show an economic impact for your project. So when we talk to ARC, the federal co-chair, Tim Thomas, has sent down advice that he has no-go list. He's really just interested in improving the economies in Appalachia. So that is really the biggest requirement. Of course, there are also procedural requirements. We have a pre-application process, and that is how you get started in requesting ARC. So those pre-applications are due actually to me via email by June 26th at noon. That's a Friday. And you can find the information for those pre-applications and all the materials that you need to apply at ovrdc.org/ARC.
That was a good plug for the website, because a lot of the information that we're talking about today is available on the website. For instance, I know that you have like a pre-application checklist there as well. And that's kind of something that's required, right, Jess?
Yeah, so I have got all the required forms laid out there on our website because the easier I make your job, the easier I make mine for reviewing these applications. So I've tried to develop forms, so you most of what you're doing is just filling out information that we really need to make a determination on what kind of project you have. Is it a good fit for ARC? And really use that information to score and rank projects, because once we get your pre-application, the way we choose projects is really on a grassroots level. So I have an objective scoring criteria that I go through and see where you score in each category. It might be anything from is your match committed, or how many jobs are you creating, and I just go down my score sheet and do that. And then we develop a list of all the projects that we got in for the year, and then those go out to each one of our counties. So we have county caucuses that consist of um, like private nonprofit representatives and local government representatives, county government, and what they do is they look at your projects and decide what their priorities are. So if a county has, a priority project, they can award additional points, and we allow for additional points up to 3 projects for a county. Um, and we factor that into the scoring. And then once we complete all of that with our counties, we go to our project review committee meeting, and we convene economic development professionals from all 11 of our Appalachian counties, and they come and talk about the projects on that list too. And then that their recommendation is usually approved by our executive committee, and then we just go down the list of our approved funding, or approved projects from 1 to whatever number we get, and we fund them until our funding is exhausted.
A great point that you're making is the grassroots. What we do is really at OVRDC, we just facilitate it, don't we? The membership of OVRDC are really the people who are making the projects happen and also prioritizing based on what's good for the region. And I think that's something that I really like about working with OVRDC is it seems like there's very much a great way for the 12 counties to work together as one to make sure that it's all coordinated. So I really like that you made that point. I was going to say, our area that we serve, it covers 6,000 square miles, 171 townships.
Mm-hmm.
So in the 12 member counties that we have, we have a lot of people that get together, like you said, and score those projects, and then the different committees kind of rank what's important. One thing you mentioned during your explanation was matching funding, and we had a question about that. How does the match funding work? So I don't know if we're down in the weeds yet or what, but someone out there wants to know, how does that work?
Right. So with the matching funding, it's really dependent on what your county designation is for those economic indicators. So, like I mentioned before, a competitive county, for example, is eligible for a 30% grant rate. That means if you have a $100,000 project, that's your total project cost, you can apply for $30,000 towards that cost. So if you have a distressed county at 80%, then for that same $100,000 project, you can request up to $80,000.
And I think it's really important too to note that through all of the different projects that we do and the different agencies that we work with, sometimes you can get funding from other sources to go with your ARC funding. Is that right, Jess?
Yes, ARC plays very well together with most other funders. The only one we really kind of discourage is EDA. They don't really play very well with other funders. If you get an EDA grant and then you get, especially another federal grant, they may cut back your EDA award by whatever amount, say ARC would fund you. So if you had $1 million project and you ask EDA, for $750,000 and you got a $250,000 ARC grant, they would probably cut you back to $500,000.
Just the overlap of that, maybe the agencies are both working toward the same goal. So
Right. So we have worked a lot with pairing ARC funds with Ohio Public Works Commission, Ohio EPA, um, the USDA, Army Corps of Engineers, and of course local and other state resources as well. ODOT, all those state resources. I guess OPWC is a state resource.
I wanted to say thanks to everyone joining us and say, Jess, we're here working from home, aren't we? It's still,
we are.
Yeah, it's still kind of always fun and a different. You never know what to expect, especially as far as the broadband thing goes. You know, I live out in the country, and I know you do too, which we love. But sometimes our broadband is not as strong. So ARC definitely has different priorities, and I think broadband is one of their priorities. Is that right for funding?
Absolutely, broadband is a priority, and we're kind of working on some creative solutions with broadband right now. I see a lot of that going on. So if you do have a broadband project, please reach out. I would love to speak to you about it. And, not just ARC, because as Gina mentioned, we work with a lot of programs. If we think that your project is a better fit for another source, we will let you know. And we will do our best to get you in contact with the appropriate people for that funding source. For example, I mentioned EDA earlier. Through the CARES Act, EDA has $225 million just to fund projects in the Chicago region, which includes Ohio and 4 other states. So if you have a big project, you may want to reach out to me because I also work on EDA programmatic things. Reach out to us or me, and we can talk and see, is your project really an EDA project? If you need more than $250,000, it may be an EDA project because they have a whole lot more money right now.
That's a great point.
Than ARC does. But ARC is a great fit for your smaller projects, especially, if you're in one of those counties with, unfortunately, a worse designation. So you're at risk in distressed counties. You're going to be eligible for 70 to 80% grant rate. And most of our OBRDC counties are actually at risk counties, so eligible for that 70%. So it's a great fit and very friendly towards nonprofits.
That's great. I have a question here about actually the direct impact of COVID from Colin Finn. He's the chief of staff in the Office of Institutional Relations at Miami University, and he's joining us today. He wants to know, how will COVID-19 affect the ability of ARC to provide funding?
Well, we have not been advised of any changes with ARC due to COVID-19. However, we don't anticipate any reduction. You can't quote me on that because we never know with government, right? But we have been told there is no anticipation of any cut of any sort. I can't really see that happening either, just because, ARC is really an economic development program, and that's what we need the most right now.
I think the only impact really we've seen is the deadlines. They're pushing back a lot of the deadlines, which is
and OBRDC, we push back our deadline too to make it easier for everyone to get their applications together, because sometimes it can be a little tougher to get a hold of those partners, or that business you may need an equipment quote from, somebody like that, to get your application together.
That's right. And then the other thing I was going to say, there is some flexibility, isn't there, Jess, with some of the ARC grants that have been awarded. There's going to be some flexibility as far as shifting over to paying for PPE or some of the COVID-related impacts on our agencies and our applicants and stuff, right? Is that right?
Yeah, so if you have an existing grant open with ARC and you've completed your project and have a grant balance left over, and I wouldn't plan for this for any future projects, I would make your scope 100% tailored to what you're trying to do. This only applies to projects that are already open, were awarded in the past. But say you did a water and sewer project for your city and you have $13,000 left over because it came in under bid, you can request through the state alternate who will send it up to ARC Federal to use that remaining funding for COVID response.
That's good to know. I know that everyone has been, we, with our job and with what we see, a lot of the communication, there's been such a great amount of attention on how can we help our local counties, how can we help our municipalities, and how do we keep everything going. So, we've been pushing a lot of the information through. But back to the ARC pre-application, some of the other questions we're getting, could you talk more about how you can tie projects to economic development, even without direct job retention or creation?
Sure. So say you're running a water sewer line past somewhere, and there's developable property along that sewer line, and it'll serve that area. You can claim that as economic development because there's the potential to open up that lot or acreage or whatever you have to any businesses that might want to locate or expand there. Some other things, if you're doing workforce development of any sort, that's economic development. If you are doing a broadband project and you're providing broadband to people, those households, especially now in the coronavirus economy, you're going to have a lot of people working from home. So find out who's utilizing the internet to work from home, or maybe run a business out of their home. Those sorts of things.
I think we're hitting a lot of the questions, and I want to thank everyone for sending questions. This was our first time of trying this, and we're getting it done, Jess. Good for you.
Good for you, Gina, because I can't do this on my own.
More information, I think. One thing about performance measures. Somebody is very specific about that. They want to know, please talk more about performance measures that you have to show and what outputs and outcomes are.
So, with our performance measures for ARC, it's going to vary a lot. Typically, we have outputs and outcomes, and the outputs would be what you are doing, linear feet of infrastructure laid down, whether that's road, water, sewer, whatever. How many businesses are you serving would be an output. And then a lot of outputs and outcomes come in pairs. So the paired outcome to that would be how many businesses are actually improved. So say, you're doing some sort of workforce development project, and, you're offering a service to help increase soft skills for people. How many businesses, could potentially take advantage of that? Those would be your businesses served. And then how many are actually going to, benefit from it? So that would be your businesses improved, things like that. And we can talk more about outputs and outcomes on a case-by-case basis. If you call me and talk to me about your project, and I can walk you through, what are the appropriate performance measures for your particular project.
Great point, and a great thing for us to kind of wrap up on. We don't want to keep everyone here all day, but is there anything else you want to share with everyone about ARC pre-applications, Jess?
I would say the number one thing that helps you put together a good application is if you do reach out to me. If you want to submit bits and pieces of your application before the deadline, I'll do my best to review it and get back with you on some suggestions, things that you could improve. Sometimes people send them to me and there's really no improvement, so I might get back with you and say, wow, this is great, and you want to make that your official submission. So, I am always happy to look over any sort of idea, no matter what stage you're at. You might come to me with an idea tomorrow, and I may say, well, you need to do some more planning, and this could be a great request for next year. So I really don't like to waste anybody's time either, because I know especially now, everybody's time is so valuable, and I will never send you on a wild goose chase spinning your wheels for no reason.
I like knowing that, and I mean, I work there, so I know this, but I understand, and I want our viewers out there to know that you are there to help answer questions and help them develop their applications. So, you want them to get it as good as they can before they submit, but you're also going to help them make it even stronger.
Right. As best I can.
Yeah. The last thing I want to say before we go, well, two things, I guess. I wanted to mention the Appalachian Regional Commission Leadership Academy, and I'm just going to if you know of anyone in the region who is a leader, and we have a lot of great leaders in Southern Ohio who would want to apply for the Appalachian Leadership Academy, the deadline is June 1st, and you can go to their website for that. And I want to definitely encourage everybody out there, if you can, to please take advantage of getting into the Leadership Academy. At least submit your application, because we have great things happening in Southern Ohio, and it's good to have that kind of network where we would be able to network with the rest of Appalachia. And then, Jess, the other thing we probably ought to mention before we go is how important it is for everyone to reply to the census.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and now's the time. I mean, you might be getting it in the mail, or you might be able to go online and fill out the census. But just say briefly, why do we want everyone to fill out their census form?
Actually, it's very important, even from an ARC standpoint, to fill out the census, because they're digging the data they use for their economic indicators. The census is one of their big resources. So we actually have had counties come back and say, well, our indicators are worse than what we've been deemed by ARC. We saw this happen the last census. There's a couple year lag, while they process all that data. 328 million people. That's a lot of information to go through. But it really does affect your funding levels, and it can mean the difference between being an 80% county and a 70% county. And something that I should mention too, with those 80% counties, they're also eligible for a special pot of funding. So ARC has 3 different programs. We have Access Road, which of course is for roads that are particularly serving economic development in some form. There is the Area Development Program, which is really the bread and butter program that you're going to see most projects funded under. And then there's the Distressed Counties Program, which is, a special program just for those 80% counties. And those 80% counties are also eligible for the other 2, whereas all the other counties are not eligible for that third Distressed Counties Program. So not only makes you eligible for more money per project, it also means you can get more projects funded because you have a special funding source that you can tap into. So census is extremely important for those reasons and many others.
Absolutely. And, we are always talking about it. It's like, have you filled out your census form? And I think a lot of people just don't understand the importance of it. They think, well, that's something I don't have time for. But it is so important to be counted, especially in our region, for things like ARC funding and, like you mentioned, with the designation for the county. Well, we have definitely been on here for 30 minutes, and we got started a little late, but we want to thank everybody for joining us. And Jess, will you do this again? I think it was helpful.
Sure.
So thanks, everyone. We'll see you the next time we're here. And we just want to say from everybody at OVRDC to keep working in Southern Ohio and get those projects in to Jess, or call her soon. Your email, Jess, is J.
J. Keeton with 2 E's. K-E-E, not K-E-A, K-E-E-T-O-M.
That's right, at ovrdc.org. You can check out our website, ovrdc.org, for our email and our phone number. We're back to work starting June 1st. We're going back to the office, aren't we, Jess?
Yep. And I won't have to contend with the wind. I think the storms are blowing in for the day.
They are. So from everybody at OPRDC, we just want to say thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you. Bye, all.